Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another installment of Media Post webinar series. I'm Mike Winkleman, Content Director for Bespoke by Media Post, and we have a great presentation for you all today put together by our friends at Reveal Mobile. Media Post webinars bring together the media, marketing, and advertising community to learn more about the methodologies and technologies that make effective business possible across a variety of categories, brought to you by our industry's top solutions providers, marketers, and practitioners. Leading today's webinar will be Dan Dillon, Reveal Mobile's CMO, who will be joined by Lindsay Pierce, Head of Strategy at Windstar Interactive Media, and Teresa Bunn, VP of Operations for the Direct Marketing Group. Today's presentation will zero in on an important new reality. Brick and mortar retailers no longer have the time nor the money to waste attracting and converting shoppers and measuring the value of their advertising. Every resource they invest now needs to be maximized if campaigns are to prove profitable. In exploring that construct, Dan, Lindsay, and Teresa will take a close look at how multi-location brands are making the most of their ad budgets, at what metrics these brands value the most, at how foot traffic attribution can be measured through all channels, and maybe most importantly, how all of this translates into the value that brand marketers will need to deliver in the year to come. Before we get started, just a reminder, after the presentation, we'll have some time for Q&A session. You can submit your questions at any time during the presentation in the question box that you'll find on the GoToWebinar interface on the side of your screen. With that, let's bring in Dan to get things going. Dan, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. It is great to be here with all of you today in our Media Post family. And Teresa and Lindsay, how are you both today?
Good, thanks for having us, Dan.
Doing amazing.
Oh, awesome, I love it. Well, thank you for joining us today to talk all about multi-location brands and how they are driving foot traffic, and just as importantly, measuring the impact of that ad spend. So let's actually jump in with a couple of just introductions, and I thought we could all just self-introduce, right? Say hello to everybody, let them know who's here. Lindsay, let's start with you.
Okay, great. So I'm the head of strategy and platform operations at Windstar Interactive. We are a digital media agency working with clients across the board for any CTV, digital audio, and native display, all things digital. We run campaigns.
Cool. I am Teresa Bunn. I am the VP of Operations here at Direct Marketing Group. We are a digital agency located in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we focus primarily within the automotive industry, working with tier 3 dealers, both locally and nationwide. We handle solutions for anything that's behavioral-based email, all the way to just really establishing digital footprints and generating leads for our dealers on the digital side of things. And then we help our dealers out with those leads with our call center that we also have here.
And I am Dan. I look after marketing here at Reveal Mobile, where we think all about geofencing, location-based marketing, location intelligence. So we eat, breathe, and sleep what we're talking about today, and we're thrilled to have Lindsay and Teresa with us to talk really about it through their advanced perspectives at some of the best agencies in the country. So let me just run through the agenda today quickly to give you a feel for what we're covering, and then we'll jump into the meat of the matter. I want to cover, just set some context and cover where consumers' minds are and where marketers' minds are in the context of the economic conditions and of course, consumer behavior. And then I want to spend just a minute on acquiring customers in that context, the best practices that we have here at Reveal Mobile for efficient campaigns, and then measuring the impact, of course. And then we're going to get to Lindsay's and Teresa's perspectives on how they think about the metrics that really make the most impact for their clients. Again, some of the best interactive agencies in the country running campaigns for complex clients who have high expectations, and they're delivering. So we're going to talk about those metrics. We're going to talk about trends they're seeing across campaigns, which is super useful. So you can, in fact, benchmark or think about your own attribution practices that way. And then they're going to tell some great stories about campaigns they've run across a variety of channels. So you're going to get a huge mix of perspectives today. And since it is November, we are going to pull out our crystal ball. We're going to be early on this, but we're going to make our best attempt at guessing what's going to happen in 2023. And knowing Teresa and Lindsay, it's less guessing than it is wisdom. So we're going to get some wisdom from them on what's going to happen in 2023. And as Mike said, anytime you have questions, we're here for it. Pop them into the questions box, and we'll get to them here probably in the next 30, 45 minutes. So with all that behind us, let me just quickly cover where consumers' hearts and minds are today. And to do that most effectively, we have to look back in time, right? So here we are back at the holiday season, but of course this is content for any time of the year. So where are we? How are we feeling as consumers, not marketers, consumers? Well, 2 years ago, we couldn't shop, right? The story was stores were closed. It was the height of the pandemic. And we moved, as you recall, in massive droves online to do all of our shopping, whether it was holiday shopping or just getting staples for the home. And then you moved to 2021 and stores were open, and it was great because retail therapy is a thing and it's true and we love it and we do it. So we went, but they were out of stock because it was the supply chain problem. So we had this next sort of punch in the face around being able to go back to our favorite stores, but not being able to buy what we wanted. So here we are in 2022. What's happening? Well, we're going to stores. Things are available, but gosh darn it, they are expensive, right? So inflation is now causing this really wave of pessimism in the economy. And consumers are really making some sacrifices, right? We're still spending, we're still going out, we're putting things on credit cards, and we're running up those cards to the max, unfortunately, guilty. And we're also paying the minimum amount, right? So we're incurring naturally interest and all those yucky things. But the fact of the matter is we're still going out and we're still buying things that we need because, well, that's just the way it is. And we've also moved away from online shopping in a way that we adopted it in 2020. We are now sort of shaking it loose in 2022. In fact, you just saw maybe in the news the other day that Amazon has laid off a massive amount of workers that they hired during their e-commerce boom. And now it's going through another sort of correction. So we're moving back into stores in droves, and that's what we're talking about today. So what's the impact on the holiday season? Well, we're going to spend in stores this year. We're going to spend in stores this year just as we always have. And even if it means we have to cut back in other areas, right? We're going to make sacrifices and we're going to go shopping for our friends and loved ones. And we're saying, as a result of that desire to go out and shop, we're saying that we value discounts above all else. Now, I'll unpack that here in a minute from the marketer's perspective. And in fact, the holiday season looks pretty rosy. The NRF, the National Retail Federation, just released their forecast for 2022 holidays. And this season, sales are going to grow in US stores by about 6 to 8% is what they're forecasting. And that's a decent increase year over year. Average increase is anywhere from 4 to 5% in a typical year, but it does not compare at all to 2021. Retail sales this year, last year in stores across the US grew a blistering 13.5%. So we're kind of correcting in many different ways across the board. So that's the consumer sort of mindset going into the holidays this year and just shopping in general. What does this mean for marketers? Now we're putting our marketing hat on and we're talking from that lens. Well, thank goodness the medical phase of the pandemic has largely waned, right? We're still suffering in many cases on the medical front, but a lot of that has dissipated, thank goodness. There's now an economic echo effect that's coming in the form of inflation, right? We know this is part of the pandemic era, and inflation in a nutshell just creates risk for consumers. It's expensive and it's hard, and of course it makes us sort of reel our lines in, right? We're not going to be shopping everywhere with open wallets and open pocketbooks. We're going to be much more conservative because now there's greater risk in what we're buying. So in terms of messaging, this is not necessarily about providing discounts, although that's what consumers say they want. This is about the notion of minimizing risk for the consumer. So think about this in terms of your own brand or your own value proposition. If you have a large brand that you're managing or that you're advertising on behalf of, remind consumers that it's familiar and safe and it's a known quantity, right? You can't go wrong by buying this product again because you know it, you love it. Removing risk from that equation. There's nothing new about what you're buying. It's proven is what you're buying. Now, if your brand is small, you can do the same thing with even less budget or less impact, or rather less punch, and simply remind folks that you're local, you're homegrown, right? You're comforting, you're reliable. So while coupons are great and discounts are going to move people to take action, from a psychological standpoint, you want to increase that, or rather increase that promise of value on the back end, right? And you want to protect, at least psychologically, you want to protect your consumer from potential loss, right? If you can offer them a guarantee, that would be ideal. And just a quick anecdote, this is probably one of the best examples of de-risking for the consumer. Hyundai in 2008, now we're going way back in the time machine, but in 2008, we had a thing called the Great Recession, right? For those of you old enough like me to remember that, the economy was on the skids, layoffs were happening everywhere, no part of the economy was safe, right? People were losing jobs left and right, it was kind of yucky. Well, the car market was also on the skids, no one was buying cars because they're super, right? That's not a cheap buy. So Hyundai said, okay, you know what, folks, no problem. We're going to provide total safety for this purchase process for you. And if in 2008, if you lose your job, you can return your car. Wow, you have just now made it completely accessible to me to walk into a Hyundai dealership and buy myself a car. What happened now is, even with the auto market on the skids and declines, Hyundai actually grew sales by 2%. And their market share in the US jumped to better than 4%. So it was a massive impact on Hyundai top line. And they did this so well in 2008, they repeated it in 2020 during the pandemic. In fact, they revised the deal a little bit and said, you know what, we know people aren't buying cars because frankly, we weren't driving anywhere, right? But in 2020, Hyundai still had inventory and they still needed to move product. So they said, you know what, if you lose your job, we'll make your payments for up to 6 months. We've got you covered. So truly a classic story in the sort of the pinnacle of de-risking the proposition. Now, if you can't provide payments for 6 months, or if you can't take returns, you know, without consideration, think about ways you can provide messaging to your consumers or potential consumers by removing that notion of risk for them. Okay, so let's switch gears now and talk for a moment about that customer acquisition piece that we're going to dovetail into with Lindsay and Teresa. So at Reveal Mobile, we think a lot about channels. We think about how channels produce customers. And as we look across our own customer base and how they use the location intelligence platform that we make available, two channels really rise to the surface pretty quickly. And I know Teresa and Lindsay are going to talk about other ones, so there's a lot of value here in this diversity. Social media is proving to be the single most effective channel in product discovery and customer acquisition. So no longer are we using Google to solve our, you know, our what should I buy this year needs, right? There's too many lists out there, they're hard to keep track of. Instead, we're scrolling through Instagram, we're scrolling through TikTok, and we're being exposed to things that we didn't even know we wanted, but gosh darn it, this year I'm gonna get that thing, right? So social media is now that trusted source of what should I get this year. And it's also, of course, a great source of customer acquisition, which we'll talk more about in Teresa's portion. But we can't forget about other channels like out of home. So out of home is having a bit of a renaissance after its decline, of course, in 2020, as you would expect. And we're going to spend upwards of $8 billion in that channel alone. And here's good reason why. It's often last touch for consumers who are going to your dealership, for consumers who are going to your store, to your restaurant, to your casino, movie theater, you name it. It's often that last touch. And so you can attribute, make sure people don't get distracted, make sure people stay on course, right? And come to your coffee shop, come to your QSR, whatever the case might be. So these are the two channels that we think about and frankly advocate for in many cases here at Reveal Mobile. And measuring these is just as important as is using them. So when you use these platforms, these native platforms, social media or otherwise, they're built-in tools naturally, right? And you can use those filters and those tools to target on social media. And here's an example on the left side of your screen. You can see using, this is actually Meta, this is Instagram and Facebook. You can target locally on Facebook pretty well, right? You can draw a radius around your dealership, and you can drop a pin on a store, or drop a pin on a street. And then if you want, you can X out all the areas around it to try to tighten your radius. And that's, you know, a decent solution. You can get some good results there. You get, you know, return, or rather you get views into things like metrics and likes and comments. But you're still probably in that circle, putting a lot of wasted ad spend out into the market, because not everyone in that circle, even though it's tighter than, you know, I don't know, a mile, there's people who aren't shopping for what you're selling, right? The other thing with these audiences on built-in platform tools is you can't show the impact of the ad spend on foot traffic, which is what we really care about in this webinar. So how do you tie paid media on social to actual foot traffic to brick and mortar stores? Well, that's where geofencing comes in. On the right side of your screen, you can see if you choose to, you can draw polygons around your locations or locations you care about and extract those mobile ad IDs. And by virtue of then uploading those to your Facebook or your TikTok or really any social media channel, you build a custom audience, you run your media only to those audiences who you know are in market, and then you can drive that traffic to your stores and correlate foot traffic to that campaign in that same geofencing technology. So it's a way of tying together kind of the black box of paid social to the very fruitful box of your brick and mortar stores. So it's a nice marriage of those two technologies together. So last slide on my part, and then we'll transition over to you, Lindsay. When we see patterns emerge across our own user base, we see customer acquisition happening for three big reasons. The first one is around customer loyalty, right? We have fought so hard to win new customers in this market. Shopping habits have changed dramatically. Loyalty is not what it used to be. So in this case, we have a lot of our customers using geofences to capture the visitors to their own stores and then remarket to those visitors. These are not cookies, because these are physical visits. So they're mobile ad IDs that they're using to then remarket. The second pattern that we see emerge is stealing share from the competition, right? Growing your piece of the pie. And these are organizations that are geofencing their competitors. And this is actually highly fruitful in the automotive space, which I know Teresa is going to talk about. And stealing share from the competition, right? Because if they're shopping for a Hyundai today, well, guess what? They need to shop for a Toyota tomorrow, or name the brand. And then the third category we see of pattern here is net new customer acquisition by geofencing locations where your ideal customers also shop. So let's say you're a health conscious brand, maybe you're selling yoga apparel online or in a store, you're Lululemon, let's say. Well, you might want to geofence Whole Foods or Planet Fitness or Orange Theory or smoothie cafes or places people go who have a health conscious lifestyle, because they're probably in market for yoga clothing and yoga mats, right? So there's really intelligent ways to think about using your ad spend for new customer acquisition. So with all that as backdrop, I'm now going to pass the baton here to you, Lindsay, and have you walk us through the way you think about paid media at WinStar and the way you measure at WinStar. Talk us through that.
Sure. I'm going to switch to the next slide. So at WinStar, like I said, we are a platform agnostic digital media buyer. So we're many campaigns we're buying across several different DSPs. So it's really important for us to be able to measure and see, the cross-device and omni-channel reach for our clients. So we really focus on what we can measure in real time, so that we can make adjustments, getting granular data sets like store visits that help us optimize our campaigns while it's going on, instead of just looking back after it ended to see how performance went. Another metric that's important is our ad channel effectiveness. So finding the right balance of the inventory. With CTV and digital audio, those are often non-clickable environments, so you're not getting that direct click and user engagement. So we need to find that effectiveness. Do we need to run more display? At WinStar, one of our key differentiators is we always try to drive that engagement, and we'll use a retargeted banner with any of those non-clickable ad formats to provide a second touch and drive those users to the landing page, or in this case, drive them to the stores for store visits. And really looking to tie in both those online and offline campaign conversions. So looking at website visits in addition to in-store traffic. So to give you an example of how we run, at Attribution here at WinStar, we tend to utilize Reveal Mobile's platform and geofence the locations. Like he had touched on earlier, it's really important for us to be able to polygon specifically the location that we're looking for and able to exclude out. For this example, this is also a auto dealership that has several locations across the market. There's dealership buy-in for every dealership, so it's important that they get to see how the campaign and how their campaign portion of the dollars are driving in business, and also to polygon out the repair centers, so you can see what's actually driving into buying a new car or a used car, and not just getting something fixed. So once we have all of the locations set up with the geofences, we create pixels that we can apply to our media. And we tend to use multiple pixels for our campaigns so that we get those granular data sets where we're able to break out by ad channel, audience, different sources of inventory, and then of course a universal pixel to tie it all together so that we can kind of see that deduped number of unique visitors coming into the stores. We apply it to our media campaigns, and then we're able to see the data in real time, checking in after the campaign starts, we're monitoring, and this helps us kind of make those optimizations on the fly. If, display or a video campaign isn't really driving into visits, but we're seeing great results in digital audio, this helps us be able to, shift budgets in flight. And so some of the trends that we're seeing in the campaign management or measurement, excuse me, is that we're definitely seeing retail therapy coming back into the world. People are definitely going more into the stores, looking more, going into the dealerships, wanting to see, touch, and feel the things that they're buying. Also, with the cookies going away, the adoption of the universal IDs coming in to the ecosystem is really helping provide more control, and also control to the user for having the consent for their privacy. But then it's unified across all the different sources, ad channels, partners, platforms, technology. It's really kind of bringing in that universal identification. We also see that technology is growing, it's advancing. AI is getting stronger in making those kind of automated optimizations, but it's still very important to have that human touch, making observations and monitoring the campaign, and really getting a mix of both of those elements together. I think helps for a successful campaign. In addition to that, we have the interactive ad format. I think is growing, finding ways to stand out from the rest of the crowd, engage your consumer while they're watching TV, or not just zoning off and looking at your phone during a commercial break. So you're seeing some more QR codes on CTV campaigns. You're able to kind of actually buy things with your remotes now. Our audio provider that we work with has a Shake Me ad where it can prompt somebody to shake their phone now to download a coupon, or to shake their phone to get directions to the nearest location, which is really great because it's it's catching them in the moment and making them do some sort of action, which helps us in turn measure engagement and success. Yeah, so our campaign story here, we're again looking at luxury car dealerships. We tend to focus a lot in this area on digital audio, so we run across digital audio and podcasts. I think the next slide has the campaign settings. Yep. So our KPI here is to increase the local dealership visit by engaging the luxury car intenders with digital audio geared toward multicultural communities. So we do this through streaming audio, podcast, and that second touch display banner, where we're finding those users that we served an audio ad to, and providing a second touch, a clickable touch to them to remind them of that audio that they heard. The targeting is really done at a DMA level, with the fact of being able to track individual dealerships in-store visits within each market. And like I said earlier, the audiences are multicultural ethnicities that are in market for a new luxury car. And for this particular campaign, we use the Reveal mobile pixels to analyze the store visits by the ad format, ethnicity, and the DMA, which really helps shape how the campaigns are structured, the budgets, and the diversification of the media that they're going to run across. So setting all of these pixels up, measuring what matters is what's important. Making sure that we can tell the story at the end of the day with all of this granular data. What do you do with it? For us, we're able to break it out by those ethnicities that we were targeting, by the channel, whether it's podcasts or premium audioscapes, and then even further down it to the dealership level to really give a holistic view of what's going on. Is the allocation of the media budget across ad formats working? In this case, it is. We're able to see that the store visits and the budget is in line with, it's a balance of the media where we expected it to be. You can see that podcasts, they typically receive 25% of the budget, and it's driving in at least 20% of the visits to the dealerships. Are we engaging our multicultural communities across these ad formats? Again, yes, we're reaching the communities and cultivating interest in a new luxury car, especially within our Hispanic audience. You can see that their RSVs tend to be higher than the budget percentage of what they had allocated. And then what can we do to improve our campaign? So making optimizations, coming back to, okay, next round, what should we do? When you look at the percentage of the impressions allocated to the podcast versus the overall percentage of the total dealership visits, podcasts are overperforming across all markets. So our recommendation would be to maybe increase that podcast budget and give more to those areas because it's really resonating with the audience. With all of this data and all of this analysis, measuring the foot traffic across the ad formats, the DMAs, and the demographics allows us to reduce risk, not only for the consumers, but for our advertisers. We know it's working. We can prove it. I mean, it's the proof is in the data.
I love it. We think we need things de-risked for us too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
As marketers. That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Lindsay. I appreciate that insight. That's really powerful. Teresa, let's transition to you and talk through DMG.
Yeah. Hey. So again, I'm Teresa. Direct Marketing Group focuses everything tier 3 dealer-wise across the automotive industry. And we pretty much establish everything social media, anything from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google Performance Max. And then we take all of that and basically launch it all at all of our clients for them to put out to the consumers. So we can go from there. So what we do, utilizing Reveal Mobile's platform, we take the approach of we geofence everything for our dealers. And the main reason that we use it for is, let's just say we have a Chevy dealership who wants to target like a GMC dealership. You don't know that you want the GMC yet. So we target their parking lot basically, and we do a little geofence over it. So because of how we approach it, the only conversions or the only metrics that our clients truly care about and want to know about are the conversions. How many people came from that dealership to our dealership? What is our monthly foot traffic? And then aside from that, they want to know how many customers are living within 5 miles. And thanks to Reveal Mobile's platform, like we're able to get all of that information from them. And that's truly, when we look at conversions as far as like the foot traffic coming in a dealership world, that's them counting, people walking in, that's us for them. So those are really the 3 main things that we focus on. So trends that we're seeing in the campaign measurement. So we look at that internally as like how we're measuring success with our campaigns with our clients. So when we see an increase in conversions and foot traffic when clients maintained all marketing campaigns. So when we utilize the behavioral based email campaigns, they utilize our call center to handle all of the leads for them. We utilize all social media platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all things Google Performance Max. And then we also have a solution called a vehicle purchase event, which is all of our marketing efforts put together into like a 12 to 14 day event. We always, will month over month see the increase in conversions when they continue to utilize all that. In any part, if they decrease, if they take away any of the type of solutions that we're offering them or that they have currently been running with, let's just say they cut their ad spend, or they're like, hey, I want to pause on this one campaign. We immediately see a drop in those metrics. You'll see a decrease in conversions, you'll see the decrease in foot traffic. So it really kind of allows them to see, wow, this social is really working. And that's a lot of times people have a hard time putting 2 and 2 together. Like, is social media really working? I don't physically see these people. How do I get the phone numbers and names of what's happening? Well, it's all hashed information. So when they see it is when they take it away. And that's when they see the actual measurement was happening. So the one story I want to tell you guys about is we have a client that's in Hoover, Alabama. It's Hendrick CDGR Hoover. And they're a client that we've worked with for multiple years. So with them, they have continuously run these Facebook events with us. They utilize all of our other services, but then they also run these events. So with their story, you know, we all went through, you know, back in 2020, everything shut down, dealerships were still open, but there was a lot of uncertainty, okay? So you did one or two things. You either turned everything off because you had no idea what was happening next, and you're either trying to save money or, you know, you just were very unsure of what was happening. So what they did is, instead of completely shutting everything off when they had low inventory because supplier chain issues, you know, they didn't have the chips, they didn't have vehicles coming, like nobody had a clue what was going on. They shifted their mindset from taking away advertising to still advertising, and instead of, hey, we're going to sell you this vehicle we have on the lot, it's, hey, we need your vehicle, we need your inventory. So when they changed their mindset on it, they allowed themselves to not only maintain like all the digital efforts and didn't like completely go blank and like hide underneath the rock, but they stayed in front of their current and potential customers with messaging and just reminding them like, hey, we're here. If you have a vehicle, we'd love to have it. You know, we'll give you more than, you know, anybody else, really just getting that message out there. The whole goal of that was, when they did start to get inventory again, you know, go from 2020, 2021, where they still didn't have anything, to like right now where they're finally getting inventory back in. This is the business that's coming to their customers' mind. You know, the customers that had sold their car or were thinking about buying a car, but they just didn't quite have it yet, or they wanted to place an order for a car. They didn't go to another guy down the street. They went to this company they went to this dealership that stayed in front of their face the whole time. So the results, like their conversions just gradually increased month over month because of that. Their foot traffic stayed, you know, gradually increased month over month. And then the sales for the dealership maintained in the beginning and then increased when inventory increased.
That's fantastic. I love the notion of not turning everything off in a panic and just keeping the drumbeat going and getting that result when everybody else is wondering what happened to their top line. That's powerful message. Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah.
So let's actually transition now. These are stories that have happened or are happening now. Let's look into the future, right? So pull out the crystal ball for us, Lindsay, and make your predictions for 2023.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on this in the beginning, but the digital out of home is definitely going to see some growth in 2023 through the programmatic pipes, especially. You know, that Amazon has pushing this through. They're opening up their DSP and the programmatic pipes to be able to purchase this in real time in a bidding fashion. They're implementing, you know, television screens in their grocery stores that they have partnerships with, so you can target people, you know, on the consumer good front in real time while they're shopping. You know, standing there, which spaghetti sauce do I want today? And you see the ad up there, you can really, you know, provide that last touch and get the consumer to convert. I think that we'll also see a mix of CTV and linear TV campaigns, as opposed to them being siloed and completely separate campaigns. I think that we're going to start to see them start to combine and be more of a omni team as opposed to two, with metrics starting to shift to incorporate how both are traditionally tracked. And then 3, podcast growth will continue. We've seen podcasts just continue to shine, especially when the pandemic hit. You know, people needed stories, needed things to engage in. Working from home, having that, you know, entertainment in their head because they don't have coworkers to talk to and everything like that. So I think that we'll definitely see some strong growth in podcasts for 2023 as well.
My absolute favorite thing about your predictions is that they are all channels that are making the jump from awareness to performance. I mean, that's a massive transition, right? For out of home, OTT or CTV, and then streaming audio. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Teresa, let's see what DMG predicts is going to happen in 2023.
Yeah, so all things social. I mean, you said it in the beginning where you're scrolling through TikTok and you didn't know you wanted it until you saw it. So I've fallen very big victim to that as well. We definitely see here that TikTok advertising is going to be on the rise, especially for automotive. Every day, and it seems like day over day, month over month, they're making their platform more user friendly for not only agencies but for businesses as well. And they're incorporating a lot of things specifically for automotive in there. So we definitely are going to see a rise in that. We're going to see a decrease in Facebook advertising. I hate to say that because a lot of things that we started here as an agency was like really based off of Facebook and Instagram too. But there's a ton of changes that are happening there, and a lot of things that they're making more difficult, specifically for dealerships too. A lot of things that are being taken away, and a lot of users are dropping off as well. One thing that the last thing that we're going to see is a rise in Google advertising, specifically for Google Performance Max. Similar to TikTok, they're making their platform more user friendly, which is just only going to make more businesses be able to kind of go towards it without kind of racking their brain or having to sit through so many training sessions to figure out what they're doing. It's just going to be a very user-friendly platform for them to hit a lot of channels all within one space.
These predictions are prescient because we did a webinar with MediaPost a few months ago where we put TikTok and pitted them against Meta or Instagram and Facebook to see what was going to happen. And we made the prediction that money was going to come out of Facebook or the back end in all of its forms and move over to TikTok. And that's exactly what you're predicting is going to happen, and probably what you're seeing among your own client base, I imagine.
Yeah, a little bit.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I know that takes a lot of courage to make, profound statements about what's going to happen in the future. If you do have the winning lottery, please just message me those. With that, let's bring Mike back and have a look through our questions and see what's on the docket for people.
Okay. Thanks. That was great from all of you. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to do a few questions here, but don't hesitate to ask more questions if you got them. Put them in the question box on the side panel. Also wanted to mention that a recording of today's webinar, as well as the slide deck, are going to be sent to all of you via email, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so here's a question for either Dan or Teresa. Can you say again how you tie social media ads to foot traffic to stores? This is the questioner talking, we have 80 locations and we're growing to 100 over the next year.
Teresa, do you want to take a stab at that, or would you like me to?
Yeah, sure. So the way that we kind of tie all of the foot traffic together is when we do it on a competitor basis. So it just depends on when we're using the Reveal mobile platform and we're doing the geofencing, where we're doing our polygons at. We're very specific down to even like the 10 by 10 room. The way that we're utilizing the foot traffic to know that, one, we're getting the right places and we're getting enough conversions. So we do the polygons, and then after about a month goes over, we double check and we see kind of where this foot traffic is coming from. How many conversions are happening from certain places, and that's how we really determine if we actually got the best places to begin with. If we actually went against the best competitors originally. We had a client that when we first started working with Reveal Mobile, they thought that their competitor was literally the guy across the street. So when we were geofencing that area, we actually found out that was not the case. It was the guy 3 miles down the road. So, that's really how we're able to utilize it. We set it up, we measure it, and then we adjust accordingly.
Awesome.
Okay. So Lindsay, how do you measure each campaign creative separately? Do you use multiple pixels?
Yes, we do. That's really important, is to have a pixel per ad format or creative. Sometimes it's audience, but yes, be able to break it down and see we pixel individual creative types with a unique pixel.
Okay. Here's a two-part question. Person asked the question and then they came back with another thought on it. Yelp has launched products for multi-location brands. How effective are Yelp solutions? Given their hyper-focus on local, do you use Yelp solution in your campaigns, or do you expect to use them more over time? Why or why not? Also, how useful or relevant is their first-party data?
Lindsay or Teresa, want to take a stab at Yelp?
I am not the most familiar when it comes to Yelp and that platform side of it. So I don't want to speak on something that I don't have the best of knowledge on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are a programmatic agency, so Yelp is not in our wheelhouse. Sorry.
Okay. Here's a question. Someone's asking, where does the foot traffic data come from? Telecom data or some app location collection scheme, as they put it here? What about privacy when it comes to data collection?
Sure, I'll take a stab at that one. The location data that we're talking about comes from opted-in mobile users. So it's GPS coordinates on through a mobile app on a opted-in mobile device. So the user is giving device-level permission to know their location because they want to know the weather, book a table at their restaurant this weekend, whatever, right? We all use location data for various reasons. And by virtue of opting into that audience, we have crossed the CCPA rules, or I should say check the CCPA box. And we're on the right side of privacy compliance 100%. And like Teresa and Lindsay and hundreds of other brands and agencies across the country, they're using this data to run really smart campaigns. Anything you want to add to that, guys?
You hit the nail right on the head.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. I like that. I got lucky.
Okay. So here's another one. How do you effectively measure foot traffic attribution for brick and mortar retailers that are located in shopping malls and outlets?
Yeah, I don't mind touching on that. Just so the way that to measure the foot traffic correctly, it's all on how you set it up originally. So if I'm trying to measure, how many people went from this store to this store, I'm not geofencing the entire mall or the entire shopping outlet. I'm literally just going to go from one business to another. You can really kind of narrow down literally as small as 10 by 10 space to see what you want to measure as far as foot traffic from one place to another. So you can kind of take out all of the noise and all the other things that you don't want to measure. Kind of similar to what Dan was showing in the very beginning with Facebook, how you can go a mile around each thing, but you might not actually need that full mile. Utilizing the Real Mobile platform, you're able to get a very, very specific area to be able to measure it for that foot traffic that you're trying to generate.
Yeah. And just something to add, it's great because if you look at it as granular as you can get on Google Maps, if you turn it to satellite, that level of granularity, you can go all the way down to your individual house, your driveway, wherever, you can, as far down as you can go, you can polygon that. So really anything that you can see there, you can break out and polygon within the platform, which is great.
On the marketer side of things, it is the most amazing, coolest type of technology that you can utilize. On a consumer standpoint, it might seem like a little off, but it's not. I mean, it's really the best thing to be able to use for businesses and for agencies because you are truly getting your message in front of the people that it should be in front of.
Yep, 100% agree.
Okay, so we're running out of time, but before we go, I just wanted to give you all a chance to reflect on anything that might have come up during the whole webinar today. Any key points you want to make sure you leave the audience with before we close up?
I appreciate that, Mike. If there are any questions about using custom audiences on paid social or pixeling your creative for the sake of exposure-based tracking, we're happy to answer those questions individually. Of course, Lindsay is available, Teresa's available, whatever your needs might be. Hit them up for sure. Their URLs are right on the screen there. And us here at Reveal Mobile, we're happy to add any color we can to any questions anyone has. Yeah. Teresa, anything you want to add?
I agree, same thing. I'm happy to answer any questions. You can find me on LinkedIn, on our website. You can contact me however.
Okay. 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 Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up for today. I want to remind everyone that if you asked a question, it did not get answered, don't worry. Folks at Reveal Mobile have received all the questions and will respond to each of you directly after the end of the webinar. Thanks again to Dan, Lindsay, and Teresa for a terrific presentation, and to the audience for some great questions. Thanks to everybody behind the scenes at Reveal who helped to put all of this together. We hope that everyone found the information presented helpful and informative. Stay tuned to Media Post website and digital publications in your inbox for more informative webinars that are going to be coming from other valuable Media Post partners in the weeks and months to come. Thanks so much to everybody for joining today. We'll see you next time, and stay safe out there. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.